My channel is sponsored by Raycon, which means we will have an ad from them somewhere in the middle of today's video. Also, I did not know this when I was recording this, but my camera had some frame rate drops. I tried to cover most of it with other footage, but if you occasionally see what looks like a bunch of jump cuts, it is actually just my webcam dropping frames. Sorry about that.
We're a grassroots campaigning movement. We're like a rapid response, hit squad.
I've sat down to make this video like 4 separate times now, and every single time that I do, I have to then re-record it because the story keeps updating. So at this point, we're just gonna acknowledge it's a developing story, things may change. Which, related, because of some of the subject material, I normally probably would not have had a sponsor in a video like this, but because of the date, I contractually have to. I do not have a choice. So I've decided to use some of that revenue to pay some of the journalists who've had some of their work taken down, or even talking about what we're going to be talking about today, because apparently that's a thing that's happening. Also do feel like I need to be a little cautious talking about this on YouTube myself, so I'm going to report on this as accurately as possible, while also recognizing that I might have to avoid saying certain words. Censorship. On July 11, an Australian organization called Collective Shout, which, come on you guys. Why did it have to be Australia? They published an open letter directed at the CEO of PayPal, the CEO of MasterCard, the CEO of Visa, the CEO of PaySafe Limited, the interim CEO of Discover, asking them to cease operations on platforms Steam and itch.io, specifically referencing games with explicit sexual content. They used a game called No Mercy to spearhead this movement, and that game, which has been taken down seemingly by the developer themselves, is literally a non-consent simulator. Like, that is what that game is / was. The dev has a statement on their profile, but I looked up gameplay and it's called No Mercy for a reason. The letter claims the organization found many games on Steam that include the same or similar themes and ends with, "We request that you demonstrate corporate responsibility and immediately cease processing payments on Steam and itch.io and any other platforms hosting similar games." Basically, because they claim to have found games including a particular type of content, and they kind of can't have even found No Mercy organically because it already wasn't available in Australia.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
They've asked international credit card companies to stop processing payments on all video games on Steam everywhere. Excuse me? And it's kind of working. On July 16, Steam added a new rule that would disallow games that violated the rules and standards set by payment processors and card networks or internet network providers. They also removed a series of games containing a particular kind of content. Not long after, games that use the NSFW tag on itch.io, a Steam-like platform largely used by indie developers to self-publish their own games, no longer appeared in search results. This includes games that have absolutely nothing to do with explicit sexual content or anything related to consent. Wired highlighted one game called Consume Me, which is about a teenager navigating her relationship with her own body and diet culture. Nothing sexual about it. It's hard for me to get through this without wanting to scream. But the game developers were not warned ahead of time, and itch.io was prompted to make a statement. It reads, "We have de-indexed all adult NSFW content from our browse and search pages. We understand this action is sudden and disruptive, and we are truly sorry for the frustration and confusion caused by this change. Recently, we came under scrutiny from payment processors regarding the nature of some content hosted on itch.io. Due to a game titled No Mercy, which was temporarily available on itch.io before being banned back in April, the organization Collective Shout launched a campaign against Steam and itch.io directing concerns to our payment processors about the nature of certain content found on both platforms. Our ability to process payments is critical for every creator on our platform. To ensure that we can continue to operate and provide a marketplace for all developers, we must prioritize our relationship with our payment partners and take immediate steps towards compliance." While I think this situation sucks a lot, I don't actually blame Itch here. They're a small team. The site allows anyone to post really anything, where Steam, comparatively, actually requires approval for any pages before publication. A few days later, itch.io started relisting any games that had the NSFW tag but were available for free, because naturally, if you can't pay for them, the credit card companies are not upset about them. I do actually feel similarly about what Valve has done in terms of the selective nature of the games that they took down. I don't feel like either of these companies are actually to blame for what has happened. They straight up do not have a choice. This is like enforced blanket censorship coming from an organization that we will get to. MasterCard, however, has come out and claimed that they haven't changed shit. They issued a company statement titled Clarifying Recent Headlines on Gaming Content, which says, MasterCard has not valued any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creators' sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations. Our payment network follows standards based on the rule of law. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure MasterCard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. Valve, however, issued a response to that response in a statement to Kotaku. They said, MasterCard did not communicate with Valve directly, despite our request to do so. MasterCard communicated with payment processors and their acquiring banks. Payment processors communicated this with Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's policy since 2018 of attempting to distribute games that are legal for distribution. Payment processors rejected this and specifically cited MasterCard's Rule 5.12.7 and risk to the MasterCard brand. I looked it up, and Rule 5.12.7 for reference says the sale of a product or service including an image which is patently offensive and lacks serious artistic value, such as, by way of example and not limitation, images of non-consensual sexual behavior, sexual exploitation of a minor, non-consensual mutilation of a person or body part, and bestiality, or any other material that the corporation deems unacceptable to sell in connection with a mark. So basically it means anything. Of course, a lot of the games suffering absolutely do not fit those descriptions. To put itch into perspective for people who may not be familiar with this platform, basically every small-scale indie dev is publishing their game on itch.io. It is a place where they can find a market, even for a game they know is very niche or won't appeal to a lot of people. Weird little games made at game jams, student games, things that are much more akin to like artistic expression than video games, and deeply personal. Very specific experiences can be found there. It hosts an entirely unique brand of game developers that kind of don't have anywhere to go without it, and it is a huge loss to a lot of people. It's time to talk about today's sponsor, Raycon. I was actually genuinely very, very excited to talk about these today because of a new extremely accessibility-friendly feature that I think could be potentially life-changing for some people. So, Raycon's fan-favorite everyday earbuds classic now offers active noise cancellation and an awareness mode, which is the especially cool one. Noise cancellation, no-brainer. There is no more relaxing way for me to do my housework than with Raycons in, listening to music or my favorite podcasts without having to deal with the hum of traffic that seems to be a constant everywhere, at least here in Los Angeles. But awareness mode specifically makes it so you can listen to music, but it also sort of amplifies certain surrounding noises. You might be familiar with this, like for example, I'm able to hear Banjo saying hello to me, which I always want to be able to hear. Not the kind of background noise that I might usually find a little grating. Here's the especially cool part. If you don't have anything actively playing with awareness mode on, it will instead play this kind of soft white noise static while also letting you hear those select noises like your dog saying hi to you, somebody knocking at the door, somebody talking to you. I think this is incredible for people who have auditory sensitivity issues, especially considering the Raycon Everyday Earbuds Classics are much, much, much more affordable than competitors with a similar feature. They also have up to 8 hours playtime on a single charge, and I'm just a big fan of the design. Not only are they really comfortable with different gel tips to suit you, they're also really sleek. So if you want to grab some and support my channel, go to buyraycon.com/CharaLanazar to get 20% off fan favorite Everyday Earbuds Classic, sponsored by Raycon. Now back to the video. So let's look at the company who is responsible, Collective Shout. Collective Shout was founded in 2010 by Australian activist and journalist Melinda Tankard-Reist. She is a self-identified radical feminist, speaks at Christian events, and alleges to want to use Collective Shout to desexualize popular culture. The organization first gained popularity for trying to ban Tyler, the Creator, from touring Australia in 2013. I'm pretty sure I remember this happening. And then they tried to block Snoop Dogg and Eminem from touring for violent or misogynistic lyrics. I'm going to quote one of the removed articles here written by Anna Valens, who is one of the journalists I've used this video to pay for their work on this, being that the article was taken down by their parent company, Vice. It reads, in 2018, Collective Shout encouraged its supporters to sign a petition to ban Quantic Dream's Detroit Become Human from sale in Australia, claiming the game features child abuse and violence against women. The petition focused on an abusive father's violent behavior towards his housekeeper and daughter in the game. I actually interviewed a psychologist about this exact topic back when I was still a journalist, and their take regarding the suggestion that Detroit Become Human was somehow promoting violence against women was that almost the opposite was actually true. The suggestion was that video games are actually the ideal medium to tackle these kinds of themes, so long as they aren't glorifying them, which this game absolutely does not. Because it kind of forces empathy on the player in ways that film and TV shows or whatever other passive mediums are totally unable to. I remember them saying that if someone who may have had violent tendencies were to play through an experience like this, there's a much higher chance that they may actually be critical of the aggressive character, causing internal reflection, than that they would be inspired by that character. Even bad people tend to see themselves as heroes after all, so there's something very unique about having someone play as the victim in a situation that they may be perpetuating in real life. So what an odd thing for Collective Shout, a apparently radical feminist organization, to campaign against. Unless you look at the bigger picture, this company does not actually care about the content of any of these video games. It is an evangelical crusade to take down video games that certainly fail with Detroit Become Human, because it is so easily defensible in the case of that game. So few people are willing to defend No Mercy. I get it. I actively dislike the content of this game, but because of that, they tried again. It's basically like okay, well, it didn't work with this game, but we still really want to take down video games. Let's have one that no one can easily argue against, use it as an in, then blow up the target being the games industry from the inside. And that's why this campaign from Collective Shout is so valuable to them and so easily effective. They picked a game, like I said, very few people are comfortable arguing in favor of, to use it as example, to then make it seem like a lot of games are doing this in order to push a religious agenda without actually caring about if it is or is not reflective of vast majority of games on the platform. It is a very effective censorship strategy and difficult to fight against. This is especially effective with the attack on itch.io, considering how disproportionately queer creators were affected. Basically existing while being queer is considered sexual by this particular kind of religious activist, and thus any expression from that community gets lumped in with No Mercy. It is all degenerate and thus must all be removed. Oh, what, you're defending these kind of games? What, you like No Mercy? What is wrong with you? See? It's that easy. If we've established that they cling onto one particular outlier of a thing to penetrate an entire market from a religious basis, let's talk about how they actually do that. I found a recent podcast, which doesn't even have 100 views at the time that I'm recording this, where Melinda spoke about the exact sort of playbook she used to start this particular campaign.
Tell us the story of your victory, because
love
this
to,
is
I'd
a story
love
that
to.
has a lot of hope.
Yes. Well, Collective Shout for a World Free of Sexploitation is 15 years old. We're a grassroots campaigning movement. We're like a rapid response, hit squad. We move into action as fast as we possibly can. And we were alerted to this game. We looked into it and we thought, let's run a campaign. And it developed very, very quickly. So the first thing we did was on a Sunday. On a Sunday, my colleague Caitlin Roper put in a complaint to our Australian Classification Board about the game. On the Monday, we decided to launch the campaign anyway, because we don't know where we would get the ruling, and we felt the game warranted a campaign kind of regardless of the Australian status. This is a global, game. The internet has no borders. So we launched our campaign on Monday, and we encouraged our supporters to email the CEO of Valve, the parent company of Steam, and 3,000 of our supporters leapt into gear. We made it quite easy for them with a button that would send their emails directly.
By the way, I don't think I need to tell my audience this, as you are not the kind of people who would do this, but please do not go into the comments of this video and harass these women. I mean that both strategically and ethically. They're already using that against gamers because, of course, some fucking asshole losers in the games community started sending these women threats of the nature I shouldn't say, proving that gamers are in some way like violent sexist creeps are only helping their case. Anyway, effectively they use what they call well-targeted campaigns that are specifically focused on petition signatures and volume of emails. They succeed by managing to infuriate people using something misleading or dishonest, then organizing them to flood whoever their target is in high quantities, which pretty standard internet playbook stuff. People on the internet have done this to me personally a whole bunch of times. It is a very common tactic to try to censor someone / something that you don't like. It's common because it works. Here is what they're planning to do going forward to attack itch.io and Steam, basically blatantly admitting that this is not over yet.
Well, we support you. What action can we uplift through our networks? Are you doing petition, a letter? What can we activate?
Literally, this is just being discussed as we speak. So what we're looking at, probably not another petition. We don't want to give people petition fatigue. We've just had 2 massive ones in a row. We are going to go direct to PayPal. And I think we'll set up like an email system. We will go after them on our social media platforms. So feel free to share, to retweet, to send your own emails, you carry a lot of authority there at NKZ. You carry a lot of weight, and your weight there, particularly in the US, would really help. So we're currently putting together the names of PayPal executives, and we're going to get their names out on every platform, on all of our platforms, and their faces, and tell people what PayPal is enabling and facilitating, one of the most egregious crimes, imaginable. Why would a legitimate, financial services processing corporate like PayPal want to be part of that?
And again, they still say all of this without listing a single game, but it kind of doesn't matter. They don't have to, because if they attack CEOs with enough numbers, they will assume there are tons of these games. It is knowingly disingenuous. They make the most sensational claims possible using the most inflammatory terms possible in order to scare these companies into enacting censorship, because they are, at the end of the day, companies who are risk averse in the interest of maintaining share value on, you guessed it, the stock market is the villain again. This particular strategy, an organization attacking a credit card company in order to censor the internet, is also certainly not new. This is an article from 2015 that discusses an already decade-long occurrence at that point of payment processors and platforms shutting down businesses that relate to sex work or sex in any capacity. Porn stars were having their bank accounts closed. Chase refused to process payments from condom company Lovability, telling CEO Tiffany Gaines that processing sales for adult-oriented products is a prohibited vertical. I'm going to leave a full link to the Engadget article in the description because it is genuinely super interesting, top to bottom. Also goes over the bizarre cop-out phenomenon that these companies who are enacting this kind of censorship go through. Like back in 2014, when a company called WePay shut down a bunch of revenue sources for sex workers, their excuse was both acquiring banks and the card brands generally restrict the processing of payments for any activity that is deemed unlawful, high risk, or brand damaging to the networks. Which, okay, as an aside, who on earth gives a flying fuck about Visa's brand image? Do you know what I mean? Like, shut up. No one cares. Just let me access my own goddamn bank account.
My brand.
But when Patreon went through a similar thing years ago, banning NSFW content, they blamed PayPal. PayPal blamed the credit card companies. The credit card companies have a history of saying that they have nothing to do with it. Or did you just sheepishly say we had to protect our brand?
My brand.
And that's all they've really said. Over 20 plus years of religious organizations trying to target porn or sex work or anything sexual in general. Now, for the record, I do think that games that feature the interactive sexual exploitation of children should be banned. Virtually everything that doesn't directly involve children or everything that is not illegal specifically, however, is a slippery slope that I am against. I think that a game like No Mercy is deeply disturbing and I hate it. I also think that it has right to exist. In no small part because censorship does not stop at the things that you personally do not like. I'm not a consumer of porn games, but I should be allowed to be if I want to be because I decide what I spend my goddamn money on, not some hardcore religious organization. And even if I never want to be, I will not allow collective shout to take down games because this is the same goddamn organization that also tried to take down GTA 5 and will definitely have a campaign against GTA 6, which I personally would really like to play, okay? And I don't know if it's just me. You get your grimy hands off of GTA 6. If I have to defend games that I find reprehensible to protect games I love, then yes, I'm going to do that, even if it makes me uncomfortable. Shit that makes me uncomfortable is allowed to exist. A payment processor should not have the ability to censor video games or any media, especially considering how dependent we are on them. This is, in my opinion, a massive ongoing problem that someone has to find a solution to. Like, it is just such an easily exploitable loophole that obviously religious activist groups have used many times before and will continue to use. There needs to be some kind of legislation making this much more firmly illegal somehow. The problem is it's just really difficult to do that because private companies can operate how they please. So, the first, most passive thing that you can actually do about this is stand up for free speech. I know it sounds really cheesy, but I mean it. Actively, vocally stand up for how important it is that porn games be allowed to exist even if you don't like or play them. We've made it so taboo to even address this facet of gaming, but the reality is that it is important. They say new technology lives or dies by the porn industry. VHS took off as soon as porn was available on it. The same applied on the internet. Video games are a little different, but not as different as you might think. It is a facet of the games industry that must be allowed to exist. And I'm not just saying that because I personally actually really like sexy video game characters, even though I do. But if we look back at the censorship of popular blog site Tumblr, which was previously significantly fueled by sex-related content creation, then somewhat suddenly restricted it from search results and banned it entirely, that failure becomes pretty obvious. Tumblr's traffic dropped by 30% and it has never fully recovered. The company dramatically devalued in the years following. Yahoo originally bought Tumblr for over $1 billion, then sold it in 2019 for less than $3 million. It's a great example of a blanket ban directly crushing an entire subculture that the brand underestimates the importance of, both revenue-wise and community-wise. There was also an attempted ban on sexual content on OnlyFans, which is like genuinely hilarious to even think about, but that very quickly failed. Back in 2021, OnlyFans said they were going to ban sexually explicit content from the platform, but reversed their decision almost immediately when users at large said they were going to migrate to other platforms, and some actually started to do it. OnlyFans leadership said that they were able to reverse the decision by striking a deal with the banks. They were only ever pushed to even have those conversations when they realized that their brand was damn fragile, almost useless, without sexual content creators. My simple, passive thesis for point one is thus: we support sex games. Even outside of like obvious principle of I support developers making what they want to make, they are a legitimate pillar of virtually every form of media. People write them off as Guna games or whatever. They get that it's uncomfortable to talk about it and it makes people feel awkward, but they are in fact a part of the games industry. They do in fact contribute to the health of the games industry and its various platforms, and are largely made by indie teams who continue producing more and more and more and more of that content that people consume. The second thing is what a lot of people are already doing and is ultimately the only feasible option right now, which is yell louder than these activist groups are yelling. Someone has already set up a change.org petition. I will leave a link in the description below to where you can check that out. It is called Tell MasterCard, Visa, and activist groups stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. It says, we demand that MasterCard, Visa, and their pressure partners stop censoring legal, fictional content that complies with the law and platform standards. Reject influence from activist groups that promote moral panic or misrepresent fiction as harm. Be fully transparent about content restrictions and the rationale behind them. Protect creators' rights to make legal adult content and ensure a fair appeals process for any penalized media. I can get behind all of that. Please go sign it. Otherwise, numerous game developers have already started campaigns to just directly contact the financial companies, and I am here for it. There are a couple of websites specifically set up to give direct advice on how you can help. Stop-Paypros on NeoCities is one of those. Again, I'll leave a link in the description. They list petitions you can sign, people you can contact, and even include things to actually say. Loads of devs have been sharing their experiences of calling Visa and MasterCard about video game censorship. I'll leave a link to where you can find numbers for Visa, MasterCard, Stripe, and PayPal if you would like to contact them and either make a complaint about this issue. Basically, you can tell them that you would like to be able to purchase adult content if you so choose, and that this has been taken away from you on some websites you frequent and you would like to know why, or you can just ask why. I would also suggest that we contact the CEOs of these companies directly, as shown in the previous clip. That is what Collective Shout is planning to do. I am obviously not encouraging harassment. Do not harass anybody. I do not think this is a good idea in any capacity, but I do think airing your concerns regarding corporate censorship directly is a completely fair and reasonable thing to do. Conveniently, Collective Shout already told us all of their names. Alex Chris, the CEO of PayPal, is on Twitter at ACCE. I'll leave a link in the description to all of these. You can find Michael Maybach, CEO of MasterCard, at MaybachMichael. Ryan McClernimney, CEO of Visa, is most easily found on LinkedIn, as are Bruce Leathers of PaySafe Limited and Michael J. Shepard of Discover. Again, not encouraging harassment, but I am encouraging you to use your voice to speak up against corporate censorship and to be loud and very polite about it. Religious activists should not be allowed to dictate what other people on a fucking global scale get to spend their money on. If you don't want to play certain games, Collective Shout, that's totally cool. Don't fucking play them.